This meeting will be recorded, and it's the regular Board of Directors meeting for March. The first, I'll call the meeting to order. It's 5:30. First item is approval of the agenda. Have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
The only thing that I'll let you know is that us?
No, that's Jim.
Okay. I'm
He's not
intending
here
to
now.
have a short executive session, which we'll discuss, but it won't
That's
be
all
long.
right. I'm right in the middle of a meeting, unfortunately, so.
Excuse me?
No, he's
talking.
He's
I'm on my-
Okay. Do we need him back?
Okay.
He's about to be back.
We got a quorum for the vote.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no other changes, all in favor of accepting the agenda as written, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye, it's unanimous among the four. All right. Yes, none. Public comments, none. Board questions, comments, or discussion?
I had a couple.
Sure.
One was, I did see in the stuff that is coming from the operation maintenance summaries. At the last meeting, you mentioned that you would think about board computers and have it something.
And I have not received the quote.
Oh, okay.
He thought the quote that he'd already sent me was for board computers, but that was for operators' computers.
So I'm just making sure I haven't gotten lost.
No, I just don't have it yet.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because every time I turn it on, it's like,
Yeah, and I talked to him to resend it, but it's gonna be pretty close to what we approved at. That actually came in about $1,000 cheaper than what I presented to you last month
Okay.
for that. So, you're looking at probably between about $8,000, maybe a little less.
That's about what I thought, and I would like to move forward. I don't wait another 30 days to get the quote, to prove the quote, it's another 30 days
Yeah.
before we get the.
Yeah. So I didn't put it in my district report this time because I told you I would put it back in if the quote had changed and gone above that 10,000. It actually came down under 9,000 or right around 9,000. So if you want to approve 9,000, it'll be more than enough to cover it.
You could just approve up to 9,000,
Yeah.
and then if it's more than that, then we'll have to wait.
Well, we're negotiating back and forth. He wants to upgrade our Windows 365 to almost double the cost for a business premium. I don't see the security needs for it. And so I said, I can't even go to the board and tell them this when you can't even get their computers to work. So right now, they're not a security risk. They don't come on. So I just can't justify that change on that software, that Microsoft 365. So.
There are few enough things that are security, that are sensitive security, and if something could look like that, you can text this and you can get a handwritten copy
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, it's just not justifiable to me. I mean, I could not make, and we deal with a lot of security here, but I just can't see going from $175 a month to $308. It's just not.
and that's for every machine.
That's for every
Yeah.
machine. So right now it's 14 units. So that's for everything. Yeah.
What do you think, John?
Excuse me?
What do you think?
I agree. As I was saying to Dan, I kind of looked at this month's expenses and proposed expenses and just, it's pretty steep, you know, and
Yeah.
anything, I mean, I don't know.
And I have additional bad news to add to it when I get to different reports. So it's not in here that just came in.
But, you know, if there's any way that ours can be cheaper, that we may not need something that the operators need,
Well, the units are the units. I mean, we're just getting the base units for the operating, but you still have to have a certain amount of security for the board. I mean, you still have to, because you still have, you have access to a lot of stuff here. So ours are, they're the basic needs that we have to have. Your guys' are a little bit cheaper. You don't have everything that we have on ours. But the Dell business computers seem to be around $1,500 or so a unit. That's just what they seem. I even went to Dell to check the price on those for replacements for what we have. But we're also upgrading your memory on those, so the speed will come up. There's just, you just don't have enough speed on those to get anything done.
Well, it amazes me, just loading
Yeah.
it is incredible.
And every, like, open an email, open anything, it says not responding.
Right.
And you sit there,
Yeah.
and that's a message that comes on, if it's taking longer
Yeah.
than a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
It is responding, it is just
Yeah.
responding.
It hangs.
We're gonna have to,
I walk away.
in the near future, probably send you larger content emails,
Yeah,
and you know why. So
yeah,
these aren't gonna do it.
yeah.
Yeah, does that mean?
Okay, so back to do you need a motion? Do you wanna wait for new business?
Why don't we wait till we get the district report, but yeah, I probably should get a motion to okay for the next 5.
I think it's.
I mean, you can do it now, it doesn't really matter.
Well,
We
it's
can
really
make it now.
candid. So this is asking questions before we even get started, so,
Yeah.
so I can wait till the new business. Somebody remind me.
I'll remember.
Okay.
The other thing that I appreciate, John, the packet of information you gave me that I've been working my way slowly through. I took a look at the emergency preparedness information summary from January 6th, 2021. And there's a note at the end of it that basically says if there's a tsunami, we would be rendered inoperable due to water damage and electronics and pump motors at the main pump station, Oceanside Pump Station, Happy Camp, and Netarts. The sewage system for Netarts-Oceanside would likely be effectively shut down and require significant effort to even begin recovery. And I think that's right. And I wonder, some of the infrastructure that Netarts pump station and main pump stations seem more hardened than, say, the Oceanside pump station, which strikes me as if there's a lot of trash coming down off the hills or something like that, I could see that one getting swept away. I don't know if there's any reason to do any kind of advanced planning on, like, is there more that we can do or say than, geez,
Well, I don't remember the document that you're reading from, but we do have an emergency plan.
Yeah.
You saw the
I
emergency,
saw that, yeah.
emergency preparedness plan. You're limited on how, if the pump stations are wiped out in a tsunami, there's nothing left.
Or
You
even
just-
if they're not wiped out, but they're inundated, the salt water is gonna
Right,
do you.
yeah.
in.
Yeah, well, and
Like-
we have 4 pump stations that will be inundated.
Yeah,
Yes.
But my question is sort of theoretical. Is there a study that one could do about hardening the system to make it less vulnerable than it is? I don't know.
That's a really open, broad question.
I know.
And you would have,
The water is likely to
Generators are not gonna be able to start.
Right.
So-
And which pipes are gonna be broken.
Yeah.
And I would say the answer is no.
so what triggers the tsunami? How many houses are you gonna have left to serve in those lower areas?
Yeah.
So our emergency plan would be to try and reinstate whatever we need for what's left,
Until he comes back.
which will require pumps, flexible lines,
I'm sorry, can you mute him until he comes back?
He's back.
Oh, all right, he was gone, I was.
So anyway, well, they can control the volume on that down there.
All right.
Okay, so anyway, it's been looked at, and since there's no way to really plan on how extreme of a failure it would be, there's one reason that the fire district wanted to partner up on that shop out back, because they're also in the inundation
Oh,
zone.
absolutely, we are.
Yeah, so that's why they keep minimal equipment up here on their side.
Yeah.
For an emergency, they can go to radios, ham radios,
Right.
and things like that.
Well, and, I mean, the system is gravity fed, so we're gonna have major pump stations in the tsunami zone, no matter how it's designed.
Yeah, as you can see the layout behind us,
Oh,
it
yeah.
just follows the ocean.
Yeah,
So, and it doesn't go that deep up
No.
up the hill.
no, but that statement in the plan struck me as sort of like, well, all bets are off. And I
Well,
think that's true,
We're,
but I don't know if it's enough.
we're hardened for, not for recovery so much like what I think you're saying.
Mhm.
We have redundancy,
Mhm.
okay, for a lot of things, a lot of backups. I mean, Netarts pump station, it's along the bank. It's got 4 pumps in it. That is configured beyond its class 1 requirement, okay? And we can lose, out of those 4 pumps, we can lose up to 3 and still keep that pump station going because we have a spare ready to go. If you lose 4 pumps, there's nothing we can do. So how much redundancy do you
Yeah.
wanna pay for?
Yeah,
Okay? You're not gonna make any of it, because if any of the roads get washed out on Lower Long and it pulls out the gravity lines and there's a gap, you're still gonna spill, and you're not gonna, or if there's anything left to spill. But, we've worked, and you guys have been here long enough, you've seen the culverts wash out on 131. We had over 35 feet of our force main from the Netarts pump station hung out with nothing underneath it. We had to have PUD bring out telephone poles and lay across where it was washed out and put ratchet straps on there just to support the force main. So, that's, when it starts wiping out roads, our infrastructure resides in the roadways.
And I just don't remember, but was that particular paragraph part of some
It was-
larger document?
yeah, it was part of.
Was it standalone?
No, it was part of, the Netarts-Oceanside Sanitary District Emergency Preparedness Information Center. I mean, I liked the song, it was very clear, and the plan was very clear and systematic, but there was that note at the end of it, it was just sort of like, oh, bets are off. And I was like, yeah, that's probably right, and.
We believe what will most likely happen is the pump stations won't have anything to pump because there'll be no lines feeding the pump station.
Yes, sir. Jim?
So the sound is, I'm not getting the sound, it's breaking up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you loud.
I can hear you right now.
Okay, we probably have to just speak a little louder, I
Okay.
guess. My voice carries.
Yeah,
part of my
well,
voice.
and I was speaking to you, and
Yeah.
Do you,
not to wherever the mic is.
from what you've been able to gather, do you know what the discussion has been about, Jim?
Yep, oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
so, enough said.
yeah.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Review of the minutes of February 16th. A motion to accept the minutes of February 16th. I'll make the first motion. Second,
Second.
all right. And review of the minutes.
I had a question on the first page, on the number 3 bullet point. I wonder if we need to put sewer district's attorney versus district attorney.
Yeah.
Just because they think it's the state district attorney?
Yeah,
Yeah. Also get rid of the apostrophe.
Stick sanitary, how about we just put sanitary in front of district?
Yeah, and get rid of the apostrophe, it's just wrong.
Yeah. Good one. Any other changes? Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes with the one change to item 3, say aye.
Aye.
all right,
Financial statements for review of all funds, February 28, 2023. Motion to accept the financial statements.
I'll move to accept them.
I'll second.
Okay. So you got one more connection in February, huh?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions or further discussion? Okay, all in favor of accepting the financial statements, say aye.
Aye.
all right,
It's unanimous again. Board audit. All right, if there's no questions, we'll go ahead and proceed to the district report.
Okay, the district is operating well within its permit limits. On number 1, I had no collection work for March. I just got confirmation today from Zwol, we can clean the grease out of the wet wells. That will include Netarts pump station as well. So I'm just, if the truck shows up down there, we may get phone calls that there's problems. There are no problems when you see the trucks in there taking grease out. I just want that clarification right now, okay? So,
Can we put a big sign on the side of the truck saying this is a routine grease removal? So that whoever the little guy is with his binoculars will,
I've never had to explain this in 25 years. So anyway, so the truck will be here the 29th. You'll see the back trucks, they'll be transferring grease from the back truck into the bigger trucks, and then they'll haul it down. We have to dispose of it in Roseburg. It's one of the very few left that take grease that's DEQ approved, so.
okay, is that, you said that's Netarts will be one of the places?
We're gonna try to clean, now it's dependent on how many tons of grease we get out of them, how many gallons of grease. The truck can only haul so much. So what we do is we set those up by the worst amount of grease buildup. Netarts has got a pretty good blanket of grease in it. And then we'll clean the main pump station.
But that doesn't go up towards the schooner, which dumps a lot of grease into the line. You were telling me, it seemed like I vaguely remember there was some grease falls or other potential problems.
Yes, which, the restaurants are your biggest single grease depositors. A lot of it comes from homes. You'd be surprised how many of them a lot of the vacation homes. We find a lot of grease coming out of the laterals there, which contribute. And so, just so you know, the grease, what's referred to as fog, fats, oils, and grease, you get that from detergent soaps. You get that from shampoo, anything like that hardens and turns into what they call fog, fats, oils, and grease. One of the worst ones, which we don't have contributors, or believe it or not, are like the little coffee stands. Those actually produce a lot of grease. But we do have grease coming out of the schooner. We'll have to get in there and we'll have to jet that line. It's a restriction right there in the line. It's a 12-inch line, but it can cause a backup further down the Bay Road, around the gravel area, and we can spill out through there. So we're gonna have to get in there and clean that line. Most of the restaurants are pretty good at keeping their grease traps, from getting much grease out, but in the last 2 or 3 years, it hasn't really been that way. We don't have any authority to enforce grease traps. So, because we're a special district, we're not a sewer authority or anything like that. We have to depend on the Tillamook County plumbing and stuff to come out and enforce the grease trap maintenance. But we haven't had a large problem with it. But we haven't cleaned the grease down in quite a while, so we have a large mat of it in those pump stations. And it has to be done, 2 reasons. You don't want it at the treatment plant, and our probes, our high wet well and overflow probes, it can interfere because the probes aren't heavy enough to push through the grease mat. So they can't read the water level when it gets that high. So it's an annual maintenance thing that we usually do. But from COVID, it's been awful hard to try to get companies with enough people to come and do that, so. But we're getting back in the routine now.
So it's routine for the grease to make it as far as the wells and then just build out there?
Yes, usually we like to go jet the lines first, so the lines are clean, so we can start out the next 12 months with clean lines. But we don't have a vac truck in there yet, so we're gonna have to do it later. We may have to do a second grease haul this year, where normally we do one. But because we didn't get it all done last year, we're gonna have to play catch up. Pump stations. H1 pump station has a leak in the discharge piping for pump 2. And when I'm talking about a leak, the pipes are probably rusted out. So more than likely I'm gonna have to get a contractor in here. We're probably gonna wind up having to rehab the piping at that pump station. So we just discovered that, so I had it in time for the district report. It's still usable, the pump station's not broke down or anything. But there's no way that from the corrosion inside there, we can even undo the bolts and the flanges on the pipes. Plus, we don't have the equipment enough to go in there and move those cast steel pipes. The pumps will have to be removed, and the railings will have to be pulled off, and they'll have to install it. It may go all the way into the valve vault.
Is that consistent with 30-year use?
Yeah, it kind of is. When we rebuilt those a little over 10 years ago, upgraded everything, those pipes passed inspection then. But due to the environment that they sit inside the wet wells, it's caustic in there from the acids from the sewer and all that. So what it does, the hydrogen sulfide gas buildup eat the material. It eats concrete, it eats the piping and everything. So as we change those, a lot of those we change back out, we upgrade them to stainless steel to extend the life beyond 20 years. That pump station, just so you know, was put in 1993.
It's where it's been 30 years from.
Yeah.
So does that take pump two offline?
It'll take pump, I gotta get a contractor in, we have to look at it, and we'll look at it with the engineer, but I think we can do one side at a time, so we're not gonna have to have expensive hauling and, closing down that, and doing bypassing. So,
But it takes away redundancy.
well, it'll take away redundancy, yes, for the time that they're working on it. But as long as one side is still capable, even if we lose the side that we're pumping with and the pump goes out, we can just swap the pump over or throw the spare in. So we still have redundancy because we have a spare pump that we can put back in its place. So it's gonna have to be coordinated with the contractor so that we can rebuild one side at a time.
If you're so inclined, Dan has a video of the leak and the stream coming out into the wet well.
I'll pass.
Excuse me?
I'll pass.
You'll pass.
It just looks like a sprinkler. Sort of.
Charming.
Yeah.
But you can see just, it's a large pipe and it's got a number of connections and it looks pretty heavy and beyond the capability of our staff to mess with.
It would probably might even have to have the wet well lid lifted off of it to gain access. So it's definitely, it's heavy equipment that's gonna require the repair. Oceanside and Capes 2 pump stations, control panels, the built-in battery backups, the UPSs, they have failed. Replacements, I put in here were 3,000 each. It's actually gonna be less than that. It's going to be more like 2,500, roughly right around that. That's installed, because they have to program them in. These have higher efficiency UPSs, but they're obsolete now. So we have to go with the standards. But that'll get us up and running. If you're following the theme throughout my district report, we've hit 10-year mark, going into 11, so we're hitting obsolete on discontinued items anymore. But this will be fine because we have all the generator backups. We don't need that strong of a battery backup. It just needs to keep the panel alive long enough for the generator to kick on and transfer power.
So are these items available?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Tyler already got us a quote on it. That's why I have the
I
update.
didn't know if it was 6 months out or, you know.
No, I don't think Tech said
1 to 2 week lead.
1 to 2 week lead time.
Okay.
Number 3, the treatment plant. Basin 1 has a failure of the automatic air valve. That air valve is what is the major component for treatment. And we just found out, we were trying to get prices for parts. We just found out they discontinued those air valves in 2015. They will no longer be supported after this year. Any parts we need to get, we have to order out of Germany. So, it's gonna require all 3 of them to be changed out. There are no more, they're not even guaranteeing us they can get us even any spare parts. So, right now, that basin is inoperable. My concern is that the other 2 basins have the same valves and they're just as old.
How
So,
old was this one when it failed?
a little over 10 years. In operation, 10 years. I mean, they're probably 12 years old, but they've been in operation since November of 2012.
So what it gets replaced with?
It'll get replaced with an ALMA actuator valve, automatic valve, but it'll be the new version. Excuse me, it'll be the new version.
And those will be available for some time, maybe.
No useful life
Yeah.
kinds of estimates.
No. It used to be, I was pretty confident at telling you 20 years, and you could still get repair parts. Anymore, the trend seems to be about 10 years before the companies discontinue something and then only offer their new replacements. And you used to be able to get an additional 5 to 10 years of support for that equipment afterwards. It's not that way anymore. We're finding that no sooner they discontinue that model, they discontinue. I think it looks like once they discontinue any parts they have left on the shelves for spare parts, because that's what they're telling us. Once the parts are gone, they won't have any.
So there's no real strategic advantage like buying 4 and having one on the shelf, because basically one of those wears out.
Well,
They're not gonna service the old one.
no, actually, that is a strategic, because you will always have a spare. Even though it's obsolete, you'll still have a new one on the shelf to keep you going. You'll just have to look at, eventually budgeting to replace those sooner.
Since there's
Yeah.
4 or 3?
There's 3.
Okay. Maybe we should buy more than one now, since you're afraid that one of the other 2 will.
Well, when we upgrade these, when we go for the upgrade, it
Oh,
will be,
you said, I apologize, you already said.
it'll be all 3 of them.
I apologize.
Yeah. Well, what we're trying to find out now, are they interchangeable? Like, can we just take it off of this flange and put the new one on and start using it and let them run until they fail? Type of deal? Yes, Brian?
No.
Okay, he's been working with Bob, so he got the latest update. So we'll have to have somebody come in and reconfigure and re-put new mounts. So once we take them out, they're done. Where it falls back to what you said, don't buy 3, buy 4. Because if this stuff takes sometimes 9 months to a year to get. And we can't have our basins down for that long. So if you have a new spare, even though it's on an item that they no longer make, you're still capable, you're still able to use it.
So just to get the new replacement part, it could be 9 months down the road? Would our basin be down for that long?
Right now, it's down until they even find out if they can get us replacement parts for it. So this one has a burned out motor. It will run it one direction but not back the other. So the guys have to go up there and they can hand crank it, but that's it. That's kind of rough to do when it goes on and off every 4 hours. So right now, we're still trying to get the information. Can we fix this one? Are there parts left to repair this to give us time to order the brand new replacements? So goal 1 is to get that one back up and operational.
Okay.
If that's impossible, then we need to move forward on getting that one upgraded to the new style and then have the other ones on the shelf. Because I think what we need to do is try to get as much life out of them as we can. But like I said, I don't know what's involved in changing it out from the one model to the replacement model. So that's where we're at. Basin 1 is down. We can operate it manually, but you'd have operators up here every 4 hours around the clock, hand cranking it to make it work. But we only need 2 basins right now to operate on, which we're operating on those. The Wedeco UV disinfection system, we still have an issue. We put a new electrical surge protection in it, but it's still, when the generator switches or there's a power out, it's burning out lamps. And the lamps are really expensive. If you look at
I saw that.
that's a Xylem quote. Now, these are all wearable parts, the wipers, the lamps, the brushes, the sensors, the O-rings. These are just standard maintenance parts that we change out. But we have to purchase 72 new lamps. That's how many lamps we have. And they're getting to the end of their useful life. And we're getting about 7 years out of the lamps.
And the new lamps would not be damaged by the turning on and off the way the old ones are?
The new ones can be, yes.
So this has to be fixed one way or the other?
This has to be fixed. This has to be fixed first.
Yeah.
The only way we would stick the lamps in is we can't meet our transmittance for disinfection.
Okay.
So this is about the time we would be reordering supply parts anyway.
Didn't you just do maintenance on the disinfection system? I saw a couple of.
We spent, what was it, 13,000, but that was buying all of the, Eco-Ray cards.
Ballast cards.
The ballast cards. So those we've already replaced. We have those in stock.
And those are all currently still brand new. We're waiting to get the other parts fixed before we put those in.
We don't wanna take a chance of burning out over $10,000 in new parts. So as long as we can keep them running this way, then, but we're gonna have to have these in stock. Now, you don't replace all 72 at one time. As they reach the end of the useful life, they start to burn out. Then the guys go down, they'll pull up a bank and they'll swap them out. Then they do the maintenance with the quartz sleeves, which is the glass cover over the UV bulbs. And then you have wiper sleeves that keep algae from growing on there and slime buildup and stuff like that. And it's got brushes that keeps it clean, so it'll continue to work.
So what is it that's causing there's a failure in the surge protection?
So it has surge protection, and we put the new surge arrestor in it. Problem is, it's something deeper in the panel. We have to have somebody come in and go inside there and find out what relay. There's gotta be a relay or some other component inside that panel that's not allowing the surge protector to protect it during the power. And you know we have a lot of power outages out in this area, so.
So, and we don't know, sometime in April, somebody will be here.
I don't have an exact date.
Okay.
They couldn't give us an exact date. Everybody's shorthanded on help, so we just get on the list, you know.
So, but it makes sense to order 72 at this time? That's what I was wondering. That's 13 grand. Okay. As
We
opposed
always
to
keep,
half of that, 36, or,
well, we've gone through that many in the last 2 months,
really?
yeah. They're all pretty old, and as we have this other power problem, it can burn these out.
Okay.
So whenever we order, we usually order 72, that's how many it takes for all of it. And this will last us a few years. I mean, we're counting on this. This isn't something you buy annually.
So in the last generator switchover, or have we, were those mostly older lamps, or some of the new ones too popped, or?
I believe some of the new ones did, but we no longer allow the generator still starts up and exercises every Monday, but we don't allow it to switch power
Okay,
because of the damage it causes to these.
okay,
So to get more useful life out of the ones we have, we're not transferring it until the surge arrestor protection is fixed. Because it'll also burn out the ballast cards. And the system, you gotta remember, it takes a long time to get these parts. And so if you short yourself on parts and then the cost goes up, you're not saving anything in the long run. So we need to keep more spare parts on the shelf than we would normally at any other time. A lot of this stuff, I believe, comes from Switzerland, is where a lot of this comes from. So,
And we
I
have
think-
no idea what the cost of the repair of the surge will be until somebody gets in there.
until they find out what is wrong,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So we already purchased, they told us to purchase a new surge arrestor, which we did. We put it in and it didn't help. And it's not failed. So it's something beyond what we can work on to troubleshoot inside that panel.
Okay. Find out next month.
So on this, before you see the 17,000. So, so on the second page, what Xylem has offered us for Wedeco, you'll see that $7,544 annually is a maintenance agreement for doing PMs, preventive maintenance, which will also give you a 12% discount off of even this 17,000. Granted, it's $2,000 off, but it's still, but that's good for any additional parts that we have to buy. The equipment is aging, and so it's gonna require more maintenance from here on out.
So what's involved in the preventative maintenance? Because, I mean, $3,750 seems like a lot of money for one day.
What do you mean 3,700?
Well, it says they come out 2 times a year for one day,
So we haven't,
$7,500.
well, there's nobody local, they have to, I don't know if they fly this person in, it's out, I think they're out.
Southern California, I believe.
Yeah,
No,
they-
I've been to Southern California somewhere.
Yeah, the last time we had them come in, it was over $2,000 or $3,000 for one day,
Well, like Tyler just said, they came all the way from Florida on the last one.
yeah. So this isn't something that you can just run over to Vancouver and get a tech.
So there was an optional training in here? Did I-
$2,000 more.
So you guys, were you thinking about the, training?
Where do you see training?
It's in the quote,
Well, it's,
under attached,
we can add an additional day for training or troubleshooting
cover letter.
for
Oh, on the cover, yeah.
$1,867 per day if you need it.
I'd say no. One day of
Well,
training,
the reason I ask is we seem to have had a lot of problems with this system. And I mean, I don't know if the training would be worth it, but maybe it would be. Just point of discussion.
the training they're gonna offer, we're not those kind of electrical engineers or mechanics that can get into these control panels. Remember, these control panels are 3-phase. You know, they're 480 volt control panels. And if you really don't know what you're doing, and I don't believe that one day of training is gonna save us anything. We're better off bringing them in once it's beyond something that they can walk us through on the phone. Now, they're great at, I mean, they don't charge us to get on the phone with a tech and to walk us through some checks. But at some point, even the engineer will say, okay, you guys don't go beyond this point, okay?
Yeah, the only question I had about the training was if it gave us capability that would save us money in the long run.
Well, they're gonna have to do a better job of explaining to me exactly what the one day of training
Yeah,
is. I mean, there's not a lot that you're gonna learn, I think, in a complicated system like this. If you open the panels down there, you'll see what we mean. And it took a week of training just to do the regular maintenance on it.
So one day wouldn't be much,
No,
yeah.
no. So, due to the age of it and the problems we're starting to develop, earlier we had problems with the ballast cards, because they had switched to EcoRay, so we met obsolete about 6 years ago. I think that's what Jim is referring to. And so we had to do some upgrades. It wasn't because of breakdowns, it's because we couldn't get the parts and it was burning through a lot of electricity at that time. So we went with the cost-saving EcoRay, which dropped that down. But now we're not having problems with that, we're having problems inside the panels. And these have been working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for over 10 years. Eventually, they're gonna wear out.
Probably within a couple of years, the training will be obsolete too.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but it's really not, because it is.
No, that's.
Yeah, even our PLCs that we have been using and sending in and having repaired, those are obsolete. They've changed them, they don't even have those anymore, because we used to send them in to have the batteries changed in them. Because if you didn't change a little, looked like a small half-size AA battery, it would lose its programming. Then you'd have to send it in for a couple $1,000s to have it reprogrammed. Well, they've now advanced where they no longer have the batteries in them. But we have four of those sitting on a shelf back there.
Well, for the reason that you said, in terms of further breakdowns and stuff, it sounds to me like that discount is a good deal for the maintenance contract, so I'd say go forward with it. Personally.
I do think with the maintenance parts, that will pretty much offset what you see for the 7,500. And I think it'll actually wind up being some savings.
if you decide that after close to a year, the preventative maintenance is not worth it, order another 72
Exactly.
lamps
Well, so
towards the end of the cycle and get the savings.
if this pays off like I think it will, but if it doesn't pencil out by next year, we just won't redo the maintenance.
Oh, I think you do what John said too, you order 72 more lamps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Then the percent, the discount will pay for the.
yeah, so normally you don't see this much at one time, but at 10 years, we just need to restock our shelves. And it's taking longer and longer to get the equipment, and DEQ is not gonna be forgiving if we go out of compliance, because we say we didn't have parts to keep our equipment operational. So I would like approval to make the purchases, which on the parts we do need. And I do think that we should try this, maintenance agreement at least for a year to see how it pencils out. And you're correct, we'll be buying more lamps as they go out.
Okay, you had kind of put all of the various items under 5 new equipment. Do you want us to just have that as the motion? Because that's board action review for approval, as opposed to now when we're on item 3. Whichever
Well,
way,
You can do a motion, I guess, to approve all the items, all the,
when we get to it.
yeah.
Okay. Or modify it as necessary. That sound right?
Yes, because you want to include item 4 too, right?
Yeah. I assume so.
And then I have the new
We
equipment.
gotta talk about that.
Yeah, the reason it's broke up on here, because I didn't want it to get overly confusing and add it all together. Because you see under item 4 and then item 5, there's more. We're close to $70,000, just what I have written down on here.
So,
So you want to just take care of this by itself and then,
all right, we can
Page
do
2.
that.
Yeah.
So,
this is the most complicated one here. So if you want to approve, do a motion to approve the purchase of the spare parts, of the parts, and then the preventive maintenance agreement.
So moved.
I'll second.
okay, any further discussion? So we have the Xylem offered to sell us the spare parts and then also to do the preventative maintenance agreement.
Yes.
And the cost will be discounted.
And yes, the 17,000 will be discounted by 2,000, yeah.
Okay. I have no questions.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
All right.
All right, that's approved.
And we do have the money in the budget. It's not, okay. Just in case anybody was wondering.
I was waiting for we're gonna move the fee increases up by about 3 years.
Okay, so we're ready to move on to item 4?
Yes.
Okay, so item 4 is a $7,500 increase on the West Tech for the current contract they're under is for the manual transfer switch and generator for Oceanside. We would also like to have West Tech give us a cost for a change order to include, this is just for the work, the engineering work, and electrical to add a manual transfer switch to the Netarts pump station. So this is authorizing not to do the work. This is for them to do the work to give us a cost estimate. And it was a little cheaper, but they left out, they need to spec the size of generator that we're gonna have to buy. We don't necessarily have to buy it with a change order with the current contractor, but we still need to know what to buy, what to go look for.
And this is discussed in the May, or in the March 13th letter, right?
Yes. Yeah, so if you go down, you'll see, it has Landis in there, Netarts Pump Station. It's a total of $7,500 increase for not to exceed $50,700. Yeah, the original 43 that we're working on already, some of that's already been spent. This just increases it for the total on the contract.
Well, I don't think we have much choice. You need a motion to separate approval unless somebody wants to ask more questions.
All right.
Move to update the contract agreement as you described.
I have a motion to approve the contract change to $50,700 as outlined in the March 13th West Tech engineering letter.
That's the motion.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'll second it.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Pretty soon it's real money.
All right.
Equipment doesn't stay new forever.
It's not gonna spend itself.
Item number 5. So, I made a note on here about the board laptops not to exceed 9,000 that we talked about earlier.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to just go down through the whole list, but you're not gonna be able to approve the amounts unless we get a calculator out and all that?
You want separate approvals item by item then?
I think it would be cleaner, especially for the minutes later.
Okay, so I vote to approve up to $9,000 for the new laptops for the board.
Second. All in favor, say